Hyrule Warriors is kind of an interesting concept. We've got the marriage of Dynasty Warriors and The Legend of Zelda. Nintendo really isn't the type of company that would just lend out an IP to just anybody, but Team Ninja, they did something right with the Dynasty Warriors games. The Gundam versions are pretty decent from what I hear, and the series, the franchise as a whole, is pretty massive, so they went with it and they released the version on the Wii U, the version on the 3DS, and now this one on the Switch. How is it? Let's find out. If you're not already familiar, the Dynasty Warriors type games in their core are a hack and slash type game where you control your character through time scenarios against hordes of enemies with set tasks to accomplish. Notably, these tasks tend to be a lot of capturing sections of the battlefield known as keeps, racing to certain points on the map, supporting non-playable teammates, and that pretty much rings true for Hyrule Warriors as well, but here it's done with some Legend of Zelda flair. You've got an impressive cast of Zelda characters, good and evil ones, from a variety of the games in the series. The story of Hyrule Warriors plays out in what is called Legend Mode. It starts off with our favorite princess having a nightmare, which turns out to become a reality as hordes of monsters attack the palace. Impa and a promising young cadet of the Royal Guard spring into action and defend the castle. Zelda goes missing, and then they go off on a quest which merges together the places, characters, and events from Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, Majora's Mask, and even Wind Waker as well. If you haven't already noticed, there is a lot of fan service going on here, but I felt it was pretty clever how they merged all these different worlds together and how they all fit into the story. The Wind Waker sections, they are fun to play, but they do feel a little bit tacked on. But the way everything is assembled, even the original characters don't feel all that out of place, even compared to the already colorful cast of The Legend of Zelda. And if I didn't already know better, I would have assumed that the evil Dragon Knight Volga was already a character from the Zelda series. As you play through the different modes and challenges of the game, you'll get to play as a large number of the different Legend of Zelda characters, and you'll even unlock more than what you started with. The characters all have their own characteristics and play a little bit differently from each other, and a number of characters can even pick up alternate weapons, either through gameplay or even amiibo support, which adds a lot more variety to the game. Gameplay here is very simple, and it is very easy to pull off some impressive combinations with just 2 different buttons for attack. There's also an experience system and a bit of a crafting system as well, where you can improve the different characters, giving you even more combination options, more powerful attacks, better defenses, more opportunities to pull off special attacks, and some of those special attacks are pretty wild looking. There's a lot to the game that just comes off really over the top, but would you really expect anything less from a game that enables you to cut through hundreds, if not thousands of enemies like they're nothing in order to attain your goals? I don't think so. Despite the simplicity, there is no lack of different things to do in the game. Beyond the Legend mode, there's also the Adventure modes, which feature a large number of scenarios corresponding with the classic Zelda maps, which sometimes even require you to play as various characters that you don't have to in the Legend mode. Topping it off, the Switch version also even includes a challenge mode and a lot more content overall. The presentation is a real strong suit of this game. The basic art of Hyrule Warriors looks to me like it was sort of inspired by Skyward Sword, with some nods to other titles in the Legend of Zelda series. But as you progress through the Legend mode, you will encounter characters from the Wind Waker who do maintain their cartoony art style, which it's kind of a trip, but they somehow still kind of work in this game, especially the monsters. Speaking of the monsters, I love the variety of the monsters you fight, from the common Stalkins who almost look like they were pulled right out of Ocarina of Time, to all the giant bosses. Unique to this version of a Dynasty Warriors spinoff, it really wouldn't be a Zelda game without a few giant beasties to tangle with. To me, I think they all look spectacular, especially in this definitive version for the Nintendo Switch. While some of them do get repetitive, the cinematic cutscenes all look fantastic, especially some of the newer ones which didn't appear on the Wii U version, and the backdrops for all the different scenarios each highlight a section of familiar locations within Hyrule. They do repeat frequently, and you do end up getting very familiar with each of these battlegrounds. They have excellent detail on each and every one of them. I think my favorite part of this game is the music. From the new arrangements of the familiar songs to the ones that aren't quite so familiar, each one is really well arranged, and it's quite remarkable how at certain parts of the game, as you travel through certain sections of a scenario map, some of the songs will undergo textural changes to fit the ambience of an area. One song might be rocking out with an arrangement that features lead guitar in one more open part of a stage, but then you'll hear it take a darker, more orchestral turn in a more cavernous area, and as the tides of battle turn, a different song may creep in, which really makes it that much more exciting. All of the arrangements of the songs are really fantastic, and possibly good enough to even be listened to outside of the game, believe it or not. Like a lot of other games that I personally enjoy, this one isn't going to be to the liking of everyone. It can be a bit repetitive or monotonous, but knowing my love of beat-em-ups, you're probably not surprised about that. It's kind of cathartic to be able to slay hundreds upon hundreds of enemies with ease, and the different characters are all pretty neat to play with, and the way they all get incorporated into the different modes definitely makes things interesting. Needless to say, the optimal version of this game is the definitive edition for the Switch. It just looks so much better and has so much more content. But that said, the original version on the Wii U is still an excellent time to be had. If you don't have a Switch and you want to pick up the game, I say don't let the content being not as much slow you down, and consider getting yourself the Wii U version. Personally, I have to say that the 3DS version, it does suffer a little bit, especially in the controls department, but it still looks great on the handheld and still has a lot for you to do in the game. So do take my thoughts with a grain of salt, and if you've not played one of these, this is definitely something you might want to pick up on your Switch. And even if you do have one of these or played either of them or both of them already, I don't think Hyrule Warriors is a bad replay because of all of the new content and, of course, looking so much better. This is a very, very pretty game, guys. And I know a lot of you aren't so big on Nintendo rehashing, re-releasing these games on the Switch, but for me, this one had enough to keep it going and keep me going. And I'm all for this one getting the re-release. So there you have it, folks. And let me throw things over to you. What are your thoughts on Hyrule Warriors? What are your thoughts on the Dynasty Warriors games as a whole, that franchise? It's huge. Lots of different games, lots of different franchises being adapted. Speaking of which, what franchises that haven't already had Dynasty Warriors treatment do you think would fare well? Love to hear what you think. Leave a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.